That's it. It's done. No more transfer portal. Gone from college athletics. And aren't we all so happy about that? This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will start with TJ Pittenger of College Football Addiction, a little crossover action, talking the transfer portal. Finally done in college sports. At least that's what the House settlement was supposed to do. I think that is absolute complete BS. Then BYU on the cusp of landing the biggest recruit maybe in Big 12 history, and he's a quarterback as well. On the gridiron, the Cougs look dangerous. Then Paul Finebaum, off his rocker, just said more silly stuff, more idiotic stuff, and I can't help but to make fun of it. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. TJ, what's going on with this House settlement transfer portal just stuff?
We have much maligned the transfer portal and the current state that it's in. One ESPN insider thinks it's going away. Do you have a take here?
I do. Jay Bilas says that per ESPN's Jay Bilas, might I say, I'm going to add a little bit of I'm going to give him his full title here, says that the biggest piece of this House settlement, and anybody out there is going, House settlement, what rock have you been under? I know it's a lot to unpack, and on my show, your show, we could do 10 segments a week the next 10 weeks and probably hit new pieces of what this means for college athletics. But at the bare minimum, schools have athletes now signed to effective 1099 deals. That's tax-wise. That $20.5 million will go toward annually. So student athletes in football, basketball, and then some other sports will get money from the university, 75% football, and then 20% basketball. The other 5% will be dispersed amongst, or we're hearing in a lot of categories, 90 to 95% of that revenue with multiple schools will go football, basketball, and then sprinkle it out for everybody else. Jay Bilas says he thinks that will keep the transfer portal at bay because now student athletes will sign contracts that are multi-year with schools, and they'll sign multi-year contracts of NIL, and they'll now have some sort of loyalty. If there is anything we've learned in 2025 in college football, college basketball, college anything, there is no semblance of loyalty. The second you sign these multi-year deals, a student athlete can just leave the same way that if I sign a multi-year deal with Locked On, I can one day say, hey, I don't want to work here anymore. Or they can say, hey, we don't want you in here anymore. And by the way, that would never happen. I love my job. You can't force someone. You can't handcuff someone to the desk. Will there be ramifications? That is possible. Could there be buyouts? Sure. But to openly outright say the transfer portal is gone, you're telling me a kid at Wake Forest, I would argue the transfer portal is now at its peak because you're telling me a kid at Wake Forest that can't afford in a couple of years to do the full $25 million buy-in, which is what it'll become after inflation, that a kid who's not getting his fair share but playing really good football won't leave and go to Ohio State. You're telling me a kid at South Alabama who's a third-year starter, all conference, that can make $1 million more at Alabama up the road won't leave. This is only going to help the schools that can opt in entirety and hurt the schools that cannot. So if you're a small university, if you're in the MAC, if you're in the Mountain West, if you're in the AAC, you're done. If you can only pay $10 million, which a lot of AAC schools will, if you're a UNLV, you can only give $10 million. But even Texas Tech or BYU or Oklahoma State can give $20.5 million. Your kids are going to still leave in the transfer portal. And TJ, again, if there's one thing we've learned, there's no such thing as a multi-year contract in college athletics. There has not been a single one that is held up yet. Arkansas made that big stink of, we're going to hire our lawyers and we'll figure this out in the court of law. No, you won't. It's all one big bluff. If we've learned anything, it's that the transfer portal is alive and well, and whatever the kids want to do, they're going to be able to do it. You can't handcuff them to the football field. I think this is complete idiocy from Jay Bilas, who usually does a very good job covering college basketball. Stick to the basketball thing, good. The House settlement take so far out of Bilas, I don't think so.
Well, I kind of see where he's coming from because, coaches never leave for better opportunities, and regular employees, if I had a job and, I may have said that I was going to work one place, but If a better opportunity came along, I'm loyal to keep less money and not do what's best for my family. So I kind of get where, if I know that Jay Bilas, if Fox tripled his salary, I know he wouldn't leave ESPN. There would be no way that he would take 3 times the salary to go to Fox, whether they're going to buy out or not. I understand that his loyalty is just so much more than everyone else's. And so he expects now 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old. I understand that people get upset when you call them kids, but non-fully brain function, developed humans. I understand that he expects these folks to be loyal, and I don't understand, Drake, why you would think anything different. I think that Bilas is completely right, and the portal is now fixed for good. Here's the thing I think people are missing with the house settlement.
This is the one I want to interject here. If we spend the rest of this conversation and instead of calling it the portal, called it the workforce, would anyone bat an eye? Right? Would anyone be complaining?
I'll say this. I don't love the portal. Right? Florida State's gotten rich off of it. They've gotten poor off of it. They've had successes. They've had failures. Whatever. It's been good. It's been bad. I don't love it in general. Right? As a concept, I don't love it for loving the sport. But do I understand why it exists? And am I trying to limit any athletes that want to move around? Should there be guardrails? In my opinion, yes, probably. But all that aside, I understand why it exists, and I don't think anything's changing. I think the big thing people miss with the house settlement and the $20 million, it's really not changing much for, I'll say, most of the Power Four. And I don't really even know how much it changes beyond the Power Four. I think there are some instances where it does. But if you were Ohio State and your roster was $25-30 million last year, right? Whatever the number is, whatever the reported number is, the house settlement is not necessarily changing how much you're spending on an athletic program. It's just changing where some of that money is coming from. Maybe a little bit less is coming from the booster collective. Maybe it's changing how much you're spending in an increasing way. Maybe you say, hey, you guys are paying $25 million already. We got another $18 million we got to spend on football anyway. Let's add that together and pay more money. Maybe that's a way it's increasing. But if you were Wake Forest, and not to continue to dunk on them, and you could only afford $10 million for NIL for your entire athletic department anyway, you don't have to pay the whole $20 million. It's not a minimum like the NFL has where you got to pay X amount. And like you said, if you're Akron or if you're even like Boise State, a team that made the playoff last year, it's not just, so at the end of the day, it's not really changing much of the landscape. It hasn't just introduced a brand new way where this team that could never compete is now on Ohio State's or Texas Tech's or Florida's or Miami's level, Alabama's. It's not doing that at all. And so the idea that now the portal is going to go away, no, this is a rich get richer sport. Everything that happens in this sport is a rich get richer sport. Why? Because all that the people running the sport care about is money, right? And so it is always going to be a rich get richer sport. Does it give an opportunity for teams that haven't been super successful of recent to get in there and make some noise like Texas Tech? Absolutely, that opportunity is there. But Texas Tech is rich. Like, I'm not describing a team in the middle of nowhere that has no money. We're talking about the rich get richer. And so, yeah, things are not going to change. If you are at a Division II school or an FCS school or a non-Power 5 school, you are going to get a better opportunity if you go and ball out. That's just what's going to happen. And that's going to happen in the portal in a good way. And if you're at an Alabama or a Florida State or a Baylor or wherever and you don't cut it, you're going to get told to go somewhere else and explore other opportunities. This is not going to change anything. It blows my mind that Jay Bilas thought for 5 seconds that it would. Are buyouts and multi-year deals a good idea? Could they maybe curtail some of it? Yes. If you are at Wake Forest and you have a guy that has Heisman potential, any school in the country that's better than Wake Forest is going to pay his buyout because it is well worth the return on investment. We're paying $1 million for softball pitchers in a sport that loses money, that does not make any money anywhere except for maybe Oklahoma. Yeah. People are going to pay your buyouts, and they will gladly do it for the return on investment that they're getting. So, Jay, I don't know, man. Try something else.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll leave it with this. The Big 12 benefits from this, too, when the best player at Western Kentucky finds himself on the roster at Oklahoma State next season. We don't complain about it then, do we? We don't complain about it then. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Why is it brought to you by FanDuel? Because it's the number one place for me to go and make money. How? Whether it's the NBA playoffs or even the MLB season, which the MLB season is where I'm going ham right now. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game. You can look up which players are hot or your favorite players in the biggest moments and bet on them live or pregame. And you can combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds. If you got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus and bonus bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? A whole lot. New to FanDuel, perfect time to sign up. Go to FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet. If it wins, get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Let's talk a little bit about BYU. It's been a couple weeks since we talked about our Cougars out there.
Well, what have they been up to, man? What are they getting into?
No, they've had some drama. We didn't really address this or not, but we'll talk about quarterback, maybe just holistically for a minute. We'll start with good news first before we upset everybody. Is BYU about to land a 5-star quarterback? Let's not bury the lead here.
I think they're about to do it. I think they're about to land one of the best recruits in Big 12 history. Ryder Lyons, highly touted 5-star quarterback, 2026 class. He's going to announce his commitment on June 24th. BYU is in a very strong, from what I'm hearing, a very strong position. Oregon is the primary competitor. I think it's those two schools. He's also visiting Utah, so don't rule out another Big 12 school. The Utes are in there. Here is where I am really leading BYU. Ryder Lyons is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, usually you'd be like, okay, the kid's Baptist. All right, he's Catholic. What's that going to have to do with his recruitment? Well, in this case, religion plays a huge part. His denomination plays a huge part. The LDS Church plays a massive part. Why? He is so committed that he plans to, according to sources, take a 1-year LDS mission after graduating high school and won't actually enroll into college until 2027. So this is going to back us up a little bit. And if you're Oregon, you're like, okay, clock's ticking. We need you. Can we wait? What do we get? If you're BYU, you're going, oh, yeah, some of our guys go 2 years. Like we're used to this. This is kind of what we do. And when this isn't a situation where most Catholic kids want to play at Notre Dame or most Baptist kids want to play at Baylor. This is much different. The LDS faith is tied so innately to its flagship university in BYU that the church and the university are connected, so intertwined that it's an honor as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to attend BYU or one of its many universities across this country. So with that, Ryder's dad, Tim Lyons, defensive back for, you guessed it, BYU. Familiarity and comfort is a huge part of this. NIL is a big part of this. I have heard that, this is, again, a quote from a source, massive NIL deal. Some have thrown out numbers like $10 to $12 million. That's crazy. Like Bryce Underwood deal at Michigan is estimated to be around there. So I think we're starting to pay that. Would BYU dole that out? I don't know. Do they have to dole that out? I'm not sure. Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator at BYU, Declan Sitake, this is a place that they're going to court the heck out of Ryder Lyons. And because of the family ties, because of the religious ties, because the NIL bank is right there for him with the Cougars, I think BYU, and more importantly to me and our entire league, the Big 12, will land the arguably best quarterback in this weird like 2026, 2027 situation. This has nothing to do with the show. I'm going to say it anyway. I am ready for me and you to go head to head on some Liberty Baylor Baptist 5-star model, 5-star quarterback. Yeah, why aren't the Baptists loyal?
I'm jealous as heck. Why aren't the 5-star Baptists getting called up real quick?
Why aren't the Presbyterians going to Presbyterian? Why aren't they doing it?
All that aside, how much of a game changer is this for BYU? Obviously the quarterback position being as important as it is. I mean, I can go with all the cliches, but does this just make them a national kind of recruiting power at this point where more guys may consider it? Or is it kind of the one-off scenario because he's Mormon? Or would there be a chance that you could recruit other really elite talent because of him going there?
I think Igor Demon he would be considered that guy in basketball for me, where you looked at BYU and said, oh no, they're not just, it's cute BYU. They're going to get the 2 or 3-star guy and turn them into a 5-star college athlete or a 5-star young man. They're going to go out and get the 4 and 5-star athlete flip them or keep them into this 4 and 5 star young man, but have them be at the top of athletics because their entire roster is filled with those 4 and 5 star athletes. And it doesn't mean the development got any worse. Yeah, they're probably still taking some 2 stars and 3 stars from Logan and flipping them around and making them very good college football and college basketball players. But now they're also taking the 5-star kids and making them even better, maximizing their potential, because that's all that BYU's done. They haven't had this deep bank, and it's been there, but it hasn't been utilized necessarily for sports in the way that's being utilized right now. With the era of NIL, everything above table, BYU can flex their muscles monetarily, and they're doing that. So landing a recruit like this, one, again, huge for the Big 12, showcases this conference can still compete with the big dogs in recruiting and still land top talent because we have schools that are willing to play ball at the pro level of where college athletics sits. And for BYU, it proves once again, AJ DeBonce is another big name right there, that they can not only land the top talent in the country in basketball, but also football and any other sport they want to, because they're committed to athletics in a way they've never been before. I want to reiterate, the way the BYU was viewed for so long, whether it be in independence or they were at a conference 2 decades ago, was, wow, look how cute, look how scrappy. They do a really good job of committing to faith and winning with what they have, even though what they have isn't that good. And wow, their entire roster is old. That's what we used to say. Now it's, oh, BYU is flexing the muscles of what NIL is able to give them, what the transfer portal can give them, and they're leaning on their faith as a vessel for their athletics as a vessel to help carry their faith across the world. We always say that the doorstep of your university is athletics. The doorstep for BYU, if that's athletics and BYU's ultimate mission is to save souls, then your athletics should be at the top of college sports. Because when it is, more people are looking at you. More people want to apply to you. More people know what BYU is and what it's about. I think it's a genius investment to go all in on 4 and 5 star guys that will lift this university to the top of the Big 12, the top of college sports. People all the time, they say to me, and I'm sure to you, why are you always talking about BYU? Because they are the biggest. I'm talking the biggest stock to bet on in the Big 12 if you want a return on investment. And I can't name another school. Texas Tech is close, but I can't name another school that right now can mirror what BYU is doing.
You're so right. When I was at Liberty, that was a big talking point, and obviously a different faith, somewhat in the same vein, but that was a big talking point. Hey, we want to do the right thing for our faith, and we want to, I mean, their tagline was always train champions for Christ. And that was a big thing they always wanted to do was, hey, we want to be the best at athletics so that more people learn about Liberty and come to our school. I mean, look at admission rates when, Florida State wins a title or Alabama wins a title and things like that. More people learn about this, and then more people learn about our faith. So, I mean, spot on, different faiths and different strategies, I'm sure, with it, but the same kind of mindset. Current BYU QB room, we'll talk about it for just a moment, and without getting too deep into everything going on, just thoughts on the Retzlaff situation and how that impacts BYU. I'm not asking you to opine on a court case or what, I don't know if you have inside sources on civil litigation that's going on, but just thoughts on how maybe that impacts BYU, thoughts around that QB room if worst case scenario comes about, and just give me your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think the QB room's in a decent spot. You didn't know who Jake Retzlaff was when he stepped up to become Jake Retzlaff and the starting quarterback of BYU. So if he doesn't play, it's not as though you'll see this complete, utter, awful dip in what BYU is able to put on the football field. Kind of what you saw with Utah last year when Cam Rising went down and they brought in Isaac Wilson, and Isaac Wilson was not very good at all. And I just don't think BYU is going to be in that spot because Utah relied on the quarterback position a ton. When you saw without Cam Rising how bad they were, they're saying, look, we're a quarterback away from being competitive. BYU, on the other hand, can say, hey, no Jake Retzlaff. If that is the case this fall, we'll be okay. We can still run the football effectively. We still have a solid enough wide receiver core, a good enough offensive line that if we base our entire game around the run, we're going to be okay. I'm not too worried about how the Cougars look going into next season. Will I pick them to win the Big 12 Conference? Hard to do right now. I need to see who they name as starting quarterback, again, if Retzlaff doesn't go this fall. And I also need to see how that guy plays in game 1 to game 3 before conference season opens up for the Cougars. And then past that, their schedule rolls out so easily that I would be surprised if they're not a game or two out of Arlington or in Arlington themselves.
it will be pretty fun to see them out of conference. I think they have a great shot to go 3-0.
Easily,
when you look at their schedule, right? You've got to play Stanford and ECU, but they're just more talented there. And then go into Colorado for is that Retzlaff versus Juju Lewis? Is it Caden Salter? Speaking of Liberty BYU. There you go. I think that their schedule gets pretty fun pretty quick.
Yep.
Let's talk just quickly, and then we'll get out of here, about Paul Finebaum, who is a fun topic to always poke some fun at. Paul Finebaum, still a little salty, still a little butthurt about the SEC not getting that extra team in Alabama, and there's a big movement, right? We don't at least I don't, right? I won't speak for you. I don't necessarily love the subjectivity of the College Football Playoff Committee. It doesn't really have a lot to do with what happened to Florida State 2 years ago. Has more to do with, I've always thought it was dumb to subjectively rank teams based on a bunch of people that may or may not have ties to those conferences or specific teams. I've always thought that was dumb. I don't think it's going anywhere, but there is a big movement that wants to bring the BCS back. Some people are for that. Some people are against that. Finebaum, not for that at all. And why I think that's the case, Drake, is because the people that are invested in the SEC want that subjectivity so that their teams can get in more. We heard all this whining and moaning and complaining about Alabama not making it, when just the year before, 12 months to the day, Alabama got in over an undefeated conference champion in my Florida State Seminoles. And I don't think they'll ever want to go back to the BCS, because the BCS would have SMU in, the BCS would have Indiana in, the BCS would have other teams in. And so Finebaum came out and said he's very anti that, which is very par for the course.
Yeah. If we look back at 2007, TJ, here's how I'm going to make my case here, this is why Finebaum doesn't like the BCS. 2007, these schools were in the top 15. USF, Boston College, Kentucky, Arizona State, West Virginia, Cal, Kansas, just to name a few. Those are all schools that in 2007, if we have the same media coverage we do today, if we had the same Power Four we do today, where everything's been so consolidated that we only think two conferences can actually compete, people would lose their minds if the BCS flipped all of its cards and those teams were in the top 15. The College Football Playoff Committee, made up of human beings, would never allow for that. They'd say, oh, well, strength of schedule trumps wins. And I know that so-and-so SEC teams they have 2 losses, but undefeated USF just doesn't have the same acumen. Undefeated Boston College, they don't deserve to be there. In this modern era of college football, which not to say that wasn't modern, but we've changed so much even in the last 5 years. I'll kind of separate the two eras that we're in. You love subjectivity if you're with the SEC, if you're in that camp, if you're Paul Finebaum. And I would ask you as a listener of either College Football Addiction or Locked On Big 12, when's the last time you turned on Paul Finebaum's show and thought, wow, I'm entertained. This is fun. I am enjoying myself. There was a day in time when the SEC Network first debuted where I used to love listening to Finebaum because it was callers that would call in and give these silly takes and crazy takes about SEC football, and they were the idiots. Now it's like the host of the show has lost all control over being the adult in the room and actually having objective, good, it's weird to say objective opinions, but seeing what's objective and giving a straightforward opinion about it, or a straightforward nod to it, or a stamp of approval on what's objective, and instead making things subjective in order to promote the SEC. And I understand. I've been in rooms where your boss says, hey, can we steer in this? Can we be a PR agent for this? Can we kind of pump it up? But what Finebaum is doing is trying to create further craze toward the SEC being paramount in college athletics, or the SEC having a monopoly over all of college athletics. And again, I understand a bit of this is to be a mouthpiece, but my question to you, Paul, have you sold out? Have you sold your soul entirely for the paycheck or for the 4 letters or to boost the SEC because you think the SEC is going to be in favor for you? 10 years from now, when you sit in the rocking chair and you look over the great hill in the distance, was it all? Is this worth it? Is it worth it for viewers to turn on your show and be like, wow, this is we're in June, and JT, you and I are going through these, TJ, if you will, you and I are going through these spectacular June topics about the transfer portal and the life that it lives, or BYU being a sneaky contender to land a 5-star quarterback, and all Paul Finebaum can talk about is, well, South Carolina should have got it, Alabama should have gotten it. Just don't lose your football games. Again, be a mouthpiece, be a PR agent. I love to pump up the Big 12, but I can tell you, I love to pump up the Big 12, but I can tell you, yeah, the SEC is better at football. The Big 10's better at football. They're winning national championships. We won't argue that. We're not crazy people. Even Brett Yormark said, look, seed it. 1 through 12, don't give Boise State a bye. Seed the teams for as good as they are. We can all get behind that. We're all normal people. And it feels like on so many topics now, you turn on ESPN and guys like Paul Finebaum, and they've lost that semblance of normal. They've lost that semblance of being able to relate to the average viewer. For me, I struggle to watch it because it's stuff like this. We're in June, and we're still begging to get a team that lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, who are both mid to putrid, and we're begging for that team to be in the college football playoff.
What's interesting is it's funny that they can't look around and see, and I'm talking not just Finebaum, because for him it's almost expected, but you get it from so many other of these analysts on ESPN and in the studio that are just as bad, right? Or maybe just teetering on just as bad. You turn on the TNT guys on the NBA, and I don't know what our cross section is of NBA viewers in college football. I know that's maybe not the closest thing, but they're not like openly biased towards the Lakers and Celtics.
Yeah, true.
You turn on Romo, and he's probably more critical of the Cowboys than anyone else. And Brady, probably more critical of the Bucks. I mean, I know him and Baker's feud was maybe fun and played into that. He's probably more critical of the Bucks and the Patriots than anyone else is. And there's no open biases with other sports. You don't turn on an MLB podcast and hear just raving about how great the Yankees are or the Dodgers. It's just very neutral, right? And I think that what ESPN has done is so counterintuitive to that. And it turns off. I understand catering to your base. I totally get that. And I don't think Finebaum's show is a bad idea. There are ACC shows and there are Big Ten flavored shows, and that's fine. But they lose all objectivity. And I do think that the people that work for the ACC network or work at Fox for the Big Ten or just wherever, there's still a concept of like, I love this sport. And I'm doing this. I might work for the ACC network. I might work for the Big Ten, whatever. I might work for Fox, but I do love this sport. I'm an FSU fan and I have this channel because I like this sport, not because I like FSU. I've got an FSU channel, right? Like I didn't need to come on here and brag about how good the Seminoles are or how great the Glory Days are, how beautiful the colors are, or anything like that. No, I just love the sport. And when it's Finebaum, it's kind of, okay, I get it. He's the SEC guy. That's fine. When it's the rest of ESPN that just shoves this narrative down your throat at all times and never stops, it alienates so many other people and so much more of the fan base of college football. And maybe they just don't care. Maybe it's like, maybe the SEC numbers really are that big to where they don't care about the ACC fans or the Big 12 fans or the Big 10 fans. Maybe they don't care about the people out west or up north. But to me, it just so much misses the mark because you don't see that in any other sport.
Nope, you're exactly right. And I don't know, you could maybe make the case like the Ohtani thing where their next 3 batters is Shohei Ohtani. But even that, just one guy, and you're promoting this product to the world. And the world is watching this one guy. The world, nobody in Barcelona is like, man, can't wait for South Carolina to play today. Nobody local over there has found SEC football, and they're now glued to this, universal product. So, I mean, again, it's this sellout, and I've mentioned it to you a million times on this show, and I'll mention it a million times more. If you bought stock in Home Depot, you'd really love for people to buy Home Depot. You'd really be excited to promote Home Depot at all. You would put it all over your car and do whatever you could, and that's what this is. ESPN bought too much stock in the SEC, and now they're painting themselves with those 3 letters, and it's become a terrible product for the average viewer.
If Home Depot would like for me to pull my best Paul Finebaum
hey, look, I'll do it. I'll paint my car.
Drake brings up a really good point, and I would be more than happy to oblige if Home Depot would like to reach out. Either Locked On Big 12 or College Football Addiction. Hit us up, preferably both of us. Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work?
At Drake C. Toll on Twitter for bad tweets and wherever you find your podcasts with Locked On Big 12 and on YouTube.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Always fun.